Welcome in, folks. We'll give it just a second to let everybody in. Thanks so much for joining. If you want to put in the chat where you're calling from, if you're sad, this is the last Monday webinar of our Campaign Action Week series.
Thank you, Grace, for all of this teaching that we've had all fall. What is this, 4 months of teaching?
No, I don't know what I'm going to do with my Monday morning after summer school and this. I don't
I
know.
know. But we all need to be learning together. That's, the constant, and then we need to teach others. So always remember what we're learning is what we want to share and how we're going to share it. Because we are so layered with so much propaganda and hate and lies and fear that the idea about these is also that we become the next sharer. All right, Grace.
All righty. I'm going to get us started, and then I will pass it to Jody and Marie for, as I said, our last webinar of our Anti-Imperialist Campaign Action Weeks. I can't believe I'm saying that. These weeks, as you all know, were designed to go deeper with each of our Code Pink campaigns, learn more about the amazing people who work here at Code Pink behind these movements, other coalition members, other organizations, other histories that we learn from to build these campaigns, and then how all of those campaigns and our liberation work is connected to Palestine, Venezuela, Cuba, to peace with China, to peace with the planet, and how we can build our own local peace economies, which is what we've been doing for the past 2 weeks and what Jody and Marie are doing around the clock all the time. If you've missed any of these webinars, our calling parties, our amazing other actions we've been doing, or didn't grab some of our resources, I will be sending those archive resources links throughout the night, and I will send it in our follow-up email that you always get from me on Thursdays. Those also now include a survey you can take to talk about what you liked, what you didn't like from these campaign action weeks, what we can build upon, what we should be reflecting on, and what you want more of from our virtual programming. I'm going to quickly go over the norms for tonight, and then I will pass it to Jody and Marie to get us started. But as always, please be respectful. This isn't a debate, but a discussion. We are not here to mediate arguments. We're here to learn from each other. Be kind, be curious, be ready to take action. And above all, please, please stay muted. We're recording and live streaming these classes, and we want people to watch and learn for years to come based on local peace economy practices from Jody and Marie, who I will pass it to right now.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for holding us all together. Deep appreciation for what you do. So last week, I felt it was really important to take that deep dive into the war economy, because if we understand the war economy and how it uses us and abuses everyone and everything, it would give us the motivation to pivot to the peace economy. Since last week, there was another horrific figure that came out. I'll remind you, last week I said 2 people in the United States have as much money as the bottom 50% of this country, 2 billionaires. Well, another figure came out from a global study. It was actually a study. And what they saw was that 0.0001% of the people own more than the bottom 4 billion. So that's 60,000 people globally compared to the 4 billion. That is an inequality that is really not comprehensible. And so it's really to understand this, what's creating this tsunami. And one of the things, I've been reading this Goliath book, and one of the things that I learned in the last chapter I read was that this inequality has happened over millennia. And in many of the cultures that were created, say between the death of Christ and like 1000, in like Latin America, in North America. You know, there were many civilizations in North America that had come and gone before the Spanish arrived and the French, etc. That are never even talked about. But they were civilizations that grew to, 150,000 or so in a community. And across Africa, Latin America, the United States area, United States, Canada, these communities that when equality happened, they start out as egalitarian communities and they grow, 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 grow. And as they're growing, inequality happens. And as soon as the inequality gets bad, what he says is people use their feet and just walk away. And when I read that, I was like, well, that's what the local peace economy is. It's the walk away. It's the turn your back on and walk away. So there's the war economy. I have to build something else. When we pivot, think about that the reason we're here is that people turned their back and walked away. And so this level of inequality has been created by the war machine, has been created by the war economy, is created by capitalism. So really, like, we can use our feet and walk away also. And this tsunami is happening in so many people's lives. And I want to say, when we see things like this weekend of when guns are used, that's part of it. It's we go through the effects of climate change that every year get worse. If you're not experiencing it, someone else is, and it's pretty traumatic. And lives aren't put back together, and you don't get back ahead of this. As I can tell you from LA, or the people in St. Louis after the flood. So the effects, the cumulative effects of this tsunami that we need to be building our arcs to get through, it gets worse by the year. The other thing I wanted to address before we move into what we promised this would be about decolonizing holidays is we also have to be in touch with our feelings and have the courage to investigate where we're at with our feelings, because sometimes they're overwhelming and it's hard to be with them. And I want to say being in community helps us be able to, when we're held in community and we can reflect on what we're feeling, that shared experience helps us go, oh, I'm sharing this. This isn't just my feeling, it's a shared feeling. And we're here together to get through this dip, or, the cycle of reconnection. Where are we in it? And reminding us there is this cycle of reconnection that Marie will post in the chat. But right now, it's the holidays. So there's tons of feelings in the holidays, and it's where grief does come up anyways. But I just want to say that there's clearly we can be in a depth of sadness about the last 2 years of engagement on Palestine, and how there's a ceasefire we've been fighting for that's not a ceasefire, where we're seeing worse and worse things, where we're seeing, kids in freezing cold and walking through mud and water, and that the pain of our hearts is not getting a relief, even with all the things we fought for, even as 92% of the Democratic Party does not stand with Israel, even though 80% of the country is against the current war in Venezuela. It's still happening. And that disconnect is hard for us. The disconnect of the world that we're changing, the effects that we're having, but that the effect has not gotten to stopping the pain in our heart that happens daily. And so I'm really witnessing this space of grief, and I want to remind everyone in the cycle of reconnection that is part of the peace economy, that all cultures before ours had this cycle of reconnection where grief is part of being human. It will be part of being alive, and we'll come back to it in our lives over and over again, and that we have tools there for you. You can just go to the cycle of reconnection and plug in grief, and there's a book, there's a webinar, there's a teaching, there's something for you to be able to find what would serve you right now. But it's not just saying I'm grieving, but it's being able to then address it. And maybe it's just pulling your community together to say, this is a time where a lot of sadness arises, and let's just be together and share. Could be one of the pieces you do during the holidays, where you pull together with a feast, and which is the celebration and the joy and the space for the grief, and how are we going to care for it. So I just wanted to start there with, you know, it's a hard time right now, and we need to acknowledge that, even as we don't let go of our resistance and our ability to show up every day. We also need to acknowledge the exhaustion, the heart pain, all of it. And we can't let them win, which is what they want to exhaust us and wear down our hearts. So it is the space where we need to nurture each other. So this was about decolonizing the holidays. And it's very hard because we've been habituated to a lot of things during the holidays. We've been habituated to consuming. We've been habituated to showing up to expectation, how to have the conversations about remaking the holidays for where we are in time, in the moment, in the war economy. How do we pivot together to a peace economy? How do we even, like, in a time of the holidays where we're witnessing what's happening globally, in Africa, in the Caribbean, in the Middle East, in all of the places where the war economy is devastating humans, how do we pivot to be more consciously related to this time, a time where all the religions recognize the light fading, and the coming of the new light, reminding us to be the light and to find the way that we light ourselves on another light and be the light for others, like the really making that conscious. What are some of the ways that we can make it conscious? And I wanted to start with some ideas, and then Marie's going to have some ideas, and we want to hear yours. I want to start with Ferguson. About a decade ago, when the uprising happened in Ferguson, after the murder of a youth in the streets, I went right away with my husband, and Code Pink came down, and it was really, I want to say, a really strong piece of me understanding the war economy, because I witnessed there that literally Ferguson lived off the backs of Black people, and it just found a way to tax them horribly with fines and tickets, and the amount of money that everybody had to pay was like a level of injustice that I hadn't witnessed here where I live, and it's pretty bad. And also, like, in just talking to these youths I was in the street with, recognizing that I like, well, how fast does a dollar leave your hand? And they'd never really reflected on that before. And it was like 8 hours. They would get money, and before 8 hours was up, it was spent. But it was spent at McDonald's and Walmart and like all these places that are the war economy horrors. And so, like, how did you rethink with them, like, how to have a different approach? And sometimes that's just reflecting, as I said last week, and I hope people did their audit of, like, how does the war economy use you? Well, this is just like, even how does the war economy spending use you? And so being with them from August until December about, okay, so how do we decolonize ourselves from the war economy, was really interesting because it had to arise from them. But that year, they gave their kids experiences and homemade things, and out of it arose something that continued for years, which was called Books and Breakfast, because we don't get books that actually reflect to our children who they are. And book companies started sending boxes and boxes of books. And on Sunday morning, the men would make breakfast for their kids and read them books, which was the experience to be offered. And the women came together with the children and made things. So it was just like, you have to pay attention, like we've been doing, to like, what is the war economy? How does it affect our lives? And how do we pivot? Those ways of pivoting are inside of us. It's just the reflection has to take place, and then the planning. This weekend we did Give Palestine for the Holidays here in Culver City, with all the community of engagement around Palestine came together with Palestinian vendors, to be able to, like, I'm struggling with how to be in the holidays, but I'm happy to have what I give be Palestinian. It like was a great way to figure out how to be with the holidays with our community. It was beautiful. Of course, always beautiful to be together, beautiful to come together and celebrate these Palestinian all homemade gifts, that we could then be what we gave to our loved ones. It was really beautiful to be together. We celebrated one of our members' birthdays there, and everybody was just feeling so good after. Like, here's a thing to do that can nourish our broken hearts. Come together, like you can come up with another thing. Like next weekend, it's a free market where folks are coming together and bringing the excess they have, another like audit of all the extra things you have, like we have enough, that enough audit that we do, and then the excess can be given to others. And so it's another way to come together and share and be together and offer to others. It's kind of like a garage sale giveaway that everybody comes together to do. I just want to remember, like, almost a decade ago when Trump was president, and walking out asylum seekers, that were tens of thousands of them in Tijuana between Christmas and New Year's. We collected an entire ginormous U-Haul full of stuff that they were asking for in the different centers that were helping folks in Tijuana. And 12 of us went down and delivered for like 3 days a truckload of things that were needed: toys for the kids, clothes, both in Tijuana, and then a lot of the clothes on the other side of the border at the church where people were taken after crossing the border when they had nothing, that then continued for another 6 months of every month us building care packages. Because what we realized when we got to the church was people literally came out of the church, no shower for 2 weeks, they had nothing, and literally were put out in the world with nothing. And so those care packages of a phone charger, food, that once they came across, they would have a care package that we created for them. And then last Friday's making, I don't know, those of you who weren't with us, it was really cool and fun, and we learned so much together. And again, the coming together, the reminder that being in community is so nourishing. And, I said I would teach knitting, and what I got out of it was I finished, since then, my winter hand warmer for when I'm engaged in the winter with signs and having to text. So thank you, everyone. Not only it's like now I've got to do the other one. I've got my needles, but it inspired me even to get something done for the winter. But take that idea, do it locally, bring people together to share what they make for people who want to learn what they make. Heart nourishing, so heart nourishing, as another offering in the making. So caroling is another thing to do together, but liberation songs for the holidays, showing up in your community shopping mall about, like, don't, free Palestine, ideas about sharing, lyrics about sharing, wake people up with the caroling instead of putting them to sleep. And then for me, it's like always remembering that there is this magnet that is the war economy. It's got a lot of power. It is pulling everybody into it. It's just like a suck machine of like sucking everything out of you and everyone, and it's a suck. And so when we're building the peace economy, it's building this other attractor that has a place for everyone to go. Because if there's not another attractor, people think that's all there is. So just reminding you what you're building is this other power of love and kindness and generosity and caring and giving and liberation. And if we're not building it, then everybody gets sucked into this machine that is devastating and devouring everyone. Marie, what are your ideas for how to decolonize the holidays?
I'm happy to share some. In our ecosystem on the peaceeconomy.org website, which I could put the link in the chat in a bit, there are a lot of organizations who are there to, and you can search by where you live, and there are a lot of organizations that would have resources for you to try and decolonize your holidays. Um, my personal favorite is to really be in touch with local artists and local craft guilds and local makers and really support the work that they're doing and to buy from them. And this is personal for me because I'm a potter. And so it really makes a big difference to me and to other people who are creators to have people call them up or strangers or friends, call them up and say, "Hey, do you have anything for sale that I could buy?" And I got a friend of mine wrote me today and said, "I want to buy something for my mother-in-law. Do you have anything in this range that I could buy?" And she's coming over tomorrow to peruse what I have. So that's really supportive. And like Jody was talking about, like the money, when you have money in your bank account and you spend it at McDonald's or Target or Amazon, every penny of that money goes to big corporations in other states, and does not re-enter back into your own local economy. But if you are buying from local craftspeople, or keeping it local in any way, local stores, anything, that money stays in your community. And that's a really important distinction about buy local. Sometimes people are like, well, buy local. Well, I went to the local Target and I shopped at Target. That's not what they mean by buy local. It's by the people who are own stores, who make in your community, and there are people that you know and have a relationship with. So there are a lot people, Jody mentioned a free store, like a pop-up. And there are pop-ups happening all over the United States. Some places in my town, we have a brick and mortar free store where people come and give what they no longer need and can take what they need, what they find in the store that they need. But pop-ups happen, especially during the holidays, all over the country. And the way that you get in touch with those is that you find organizations in your local community, like I talked about that you can find in our ecosystem. But you can also reach out to local nonprofits that are doing sort of alternative organizing. Food Not Bombs is a organization that's all over the United States in almost every town in this country. And they would be a really good starting place to find connections to other local groups. Of course, there's always Craigslist and the marketplace to find used things, and buying used whenever possible. I mean, we all know that that's the best thing, right? Recycling. We recycle all of our plastic. We try to not throw away things that can be recycled. Well, gift giving in the holidays with things that you buy that are loved and used by other people but no longer wanted is a form of recycling, and really has an impact on the trash space, in waste disposal. It helps keep your money for other things that you need in your life, and it supports other people who are in need around you who are selling it. Um, let's see. Bring You can also just create experiences together. So bringing people together in your living room to play music or to tell stories to each other. In January, we're going to have a friend of mine who brings people together to tell stories. And he's been doing it since before the pandemic every month, and he's created a really beautiful community around it. You can eat together, cook together. These are all really beautiful things. And we do a lot of this like parties and things like that, but with real intention around trying to bring in some strangers, people you don't know, people who are your neighbors, and really pay attention to community building. And of course, if you have a creative desire to make and build things, finding a local makerspace, and these are now becoming really common, especially in major cities, but even in small towns or on college campuses, and sometimes they will allow people from outside to come into the makerspace on college campuses. Those are really great places to find things that big pieces of equipment and things you wouldn't necessarily be able to have in your home. And you can do woodworking and other kinds of crafting in makerspaces and just simple crafting together around your living room table. Last Friday, when we had our call in, my daughter had just come home from college with two friends of hers, and we sat around and we collaged together. And it was a really beautiful hour, just the three of us, four of us together, talking and sharing. And it was really great. And so bringing people together to make art is super special. And then, of course, you can, even if you're buying gifts or you know that you're going to be buying gifts out, like not made gifts, but buying them, you can do something as simple as making your own wrapping paper and making your own cards. You can make prints with potatoes or carving into a linoleum tile. There are very simple ways to print, and people are always excited and kind of amused when they get homemade wrapping paper and homemade cards. And I think that's a really beautiful thing also to add to your holiday gifting. So back to you, Jody.
Thank you, Marie. All right, now it's your turn. So we'd love to hear from you, what you are doing, and what you could share that we haven't mentioned. So if anybody wants to raise their hand with some ideas, um, like Dia, you want to tell us? You want to unmute? There you go. You unmuted. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm kind of a coordinator of one of our Palestine solidarity groups here in Rochester, Minnesota. And so I have a button maker. So I've been making a lot of buttons. So I just give give one to each family member. And then I also said with a gift certificate to share a meal if people have, sadly, half of my family doesn't want to talk about Palestine, doesn't want to talk about the war economy or weapons, and the pollution of this industry. But just giving them a button, it's kind of a simple sort of gift, and maybe they could give it to someone else, or maybe they'll actually wear it. I don't know. It's try to be not too threatening.
That's beautiful. And that you're making them means something, it what we know about making is it's the kind of thing that people aren't going to throw away, give away. It's like there's heart in it and heart sticks. So that time and effort is enormous for folks. And I just want to mention to who was it that Karen, definitely everything peace economy is done in community. And sorry that wasn't clear. Yes, walking away is done in community. It's nothing happens individually. This is all about community and really taking this time to make the community space is super important, but everything we do at the peace economy is about building community, nourishing community, creating community, joining community. That is essentially the thing we wake up from out of the war economy is individualism as the first pivot. Any other folks here with ideas about ways they've decolonized the holidays? Raise your hand, unmute, share. Any other ideas here? Grace.
Both you and Marie have inspired me. I'm not good at pottery. I've never been good at pottery, but me and my mom love doing things that we're not great at together. So we're doing one or two classes over the winter break, just together, doing it together, learning, being bad, but doing it with each other.
Yeah, the doing together, the making together is so cool. We don't do that enough. And also just making is so important because we don't know how to make. And when we think of all the ways the war economy takes us away from ourselves, making is one of the things, it's just like we've got to be making just to connect to the part of ourselves that knows, that creates, that it's a magic of connection that we're not getting enough of. And the war economy has distanced us from that. They want to don't think they're doing us a favor ever in all these things that they like make life easier. It's not make life easier, it's make you more a slave to us. So always remembering that also, and that the making is a form of resistance. Even if you're, it's like it's a form of resistance because it's decolonizing yourself. And that's, we have to remember how insidious this monster is. It is literally out there consuming us, and we don't see that. And I'm hoping folks are taking their audit of their time and their money and thinking about it not as a judgment, but as an awareness, and then being able to make plans together for how to pivot away from that. Yes, definitely, Karen. I think, it allows this other energy that, and, we think of like the loneliness disease of America and the alienation. Making, is one of the, like, when you're feeling alienated, go to that and share it. Like the sharing and the making are magical. All right. Anybody else decolonize the holidays? Done something? Joe, I see your finger.
Thank you. Yes, sorry. Sorry for giving you the finger. Uh, I wrestled with what to do this year, and it was on the positive track of moving towards a peace economy. And what I decided to do was to share, and it was in a special context that I did this. The mindfulness meditation that I've done and have changed, that I've done based on Thich Nhat Hanh. And I sent, rather than sending cards, which I usually do, I sent that by email. And I got the responses I got were, "Oh my God, this has come at just the right time. I needed this so much." So that, I mean, the meditation is really, it's the ingredients that are needed for building community. And I'm sorry.
Could you share it with us, Joe? Do you have it, like, if you
I
send it by email, could you post it in the chat?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you for gifting to this
I
community.
will. I should have thought of doing that earlier. But the thing is that now, okay, so to reference again your comment about how the war economy colonizes us, I've had that thought in my mind for some months now about ways in which I have been colonized, and which have made me alienated from my true self. And I just feel, I keep saying to myself, you're not the only one who's going through this. So to hear you talk about this so clearly is really, again, another confirmation, because I think that in terms of building community, it's also building right relationship that is different from the one kinds of relating to each other that we were taught.
Thank
So
you, Joe. Yes, thank you for that reflection. If you could post your
I will. I'll
loving
see if I
kindness.
can track it down right now.
And also, I just like reflecting on what Joe said. the cool thing is to remember that we are abundant. We have all these
Yes.
and when we share them, there's something somebody else wants. So
That's
think
right.
about the fact that you cared enough and it's valuable to you. So that value can be shared. And it's not out there, it's here. It's like if it has served you and it has given you value, think about how you can share that value with others.
Okay, I want to just add to what you said because I'm not sure I was clear enough about that. I didn't, something has happened to me in the past month or so, slowly, but persistently. And one of the things that has, one of the fruits of my experiencing has been recognizing that I've been hoodwinked. I mean, I for some reason, why did I think that people wouldn't appreciate this? Why did I think that people would think it was hokey or whatever the hell I thought? I don't know. But I do know that it was a myth that I'm happy to let go of. I'm going to go try to track it down now. Hope I can remember how to do this.
Well, thank you for saying that also, Joe. You're saying a lot of truths. So hoodwinked is exactly it. Just to go back a bit about the peace economy, the peace economy existed. And, the peace economy were the indigenous communities that white Western oppressor colonizers came in and said, you're not civilized. We're going to take over your thinking and devalue what you have and cover it with our things so we can steal everything from you. That's what happened. And what we should remember and really look at, and I think I touched on this last week, is that the indigenous cultures that white colonizers came and destroyed were much more human, intelligent, complex cultures than the war economy culture that we live in. The war economy culture that we live in is stupid. It doesn't value life. It doesn't support life. It makes everybody dumb. So please, Joe, it's like you're touching on something so important because yes, think about that it made you think that this thing that serves life, that serves the heart, that is so valuable to others, that it forced you to think that this is dumb when really it's the smart thing. But this war economy culture, that is what it does. It's it's insidiously inside of us. So, when I'm saying, do the audit and figure out, it's like you have to have a lot of patience with yourself. You have to have a lot of patience with everyone, because on purpose, the peace economy has been devalued, crushed, ignored, privatized. This is real stuff that has happened. And you can look back in history and see all the ways it has been crushed and destroyed. And so, anything that relates to love and kindness and generosity and sharing and all these things where the war economy doesn't have power, you're going to be made there. It's going to make you dumb to think that that's true. And I want to say that the time that I was 16 years old when I was like, why are we killing people in Vietnam? I was trying to understand, what was this war about? And it was about communism. We're killing people because they believe in equality for all. I couldn't figure that out. And I think, it made me the activist I am for my whole life. That doesn't even make sense. But it's if you're about equality, if you're about caring, you have to be crushed. And all those countries in the Middle East that we've crushed, Syria, Libya, Iran, Iraq, they're peace economies. Palestine, you can't have economies where people take care of each other. We have to crush Venezuela. We have to crush Cuba. We have to crush, China. And nobody's perfect at it. But people, at least when you're trying it, if you are trying it, they have to crush you. So let's go to Northern Elizabeth. We've got a hand raised.
I just had a comment. This is really interesting because I didn't even have a name for it, but when I was a single mom, I had no money. And even when I was married, there was no money. And so and I'm not an artist, like my family's full of them, but I didn't get it. But I have an artist's heart, which is more important than I do great stick people. Kids love them. And so I always had to think about things we did, but I got it from my father because my father, he went to war and he came back with PTSD and a lot of bad things happened, but he understood war very well and he would speak about it in a way that made sense to me. And I'm my father's daughter. I realized it now, and he would we'd make our own candles, and he showed us how to do it. And those candles came into fashion 5 years after he showed us how to do it. And he just continually was recreating things. And when he walked in the bush, he was perfectly healthy. He wasn't a sick man anymore. He wasn't violent. And so through the years, my kids were raised with that until after a while, they've all left home. They're all grown up. They're all adults, and some of them are getting older. And they love to shop, the opposite of me. Like they don't make things, they can, but in spite of that, whenever I was around my grandchildren, I always said, let's make something from scratch. We always did that. And I mean, I hate war because of we lived in it as a child. But what I discovered is that how would I say it? That when you create something, and my mother and my father kept every single thing my children sent to them. Friends that I send stuff, their children keep it because it's unique. It isn't has nothing to do with being perfect. And my great grandchildren, their grandparents and their parents, the other day was their grandmother's birthday. And you know what they did? They painted every single one in the house, painted together. And it was beautiful. And so people just think it's being family and connecting in that, but it is a peaceful thing because nobody fights when they're painting. When you're baking, unless you break all the eggs on the floor, like then they get upset. But it is something that's intuitive. It is that even the people that came, the settler, we're all part of the settler project. They all brought that from Europe with them. But after a while, when the economy was good, people got away from it. But I know I've worked with lots of Indigenous peoples, and their society is so complex. That's why what was done to them is even worse than a genocide. There isn't a word for it because they exterminated the thinking, their faith processes, their hierarchical order. And I'll give you a really good example. When I was in it's way up north in one of the posts up there, and there was a museum, and we went to we saw it, and they were talking about the traders, how they used to trade this community with the British. And this woman was chosen as the best negotiator for the whole nation. So she would go there. And then these new guys came from Britain, and the French had no problem. They could care less, they just liked a good negotiator. But they stood there and they told the nation, well, we can't negotiate with a woman. It's not possible. So how they managed it, she told them, this is what you do. And they opted out to get two men to negotiate for them. That's how stupid that our this settler mentality is, that they couldn't negotiate with a woman, even though she was chosen for her best expertise. And she was right there. When they would say something, she would do something. So when about 5 years ago, I had this epiphany that I was so enraged at the behavior of my country, Canada. I'm off. I sometimes, and the other day I found out something else and I thought, I could have gone. But that's what's happening. And that's why we're going to see a lot of violence and discontent and everything, because There's, there's, we've been so, yeah, but you know, very few people want to have that epiphany. They want to believe everything's okay. Even though
Well, that's why we're here. For those who don't want to believe it's okay, we're here to
I
help
know.
make that bridge. So
Anyway,
thank you for sharing, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and it's helping us put, words to the things we're feeling and experiencing.
yeah.
Happens in community where we can hear from each other, where Joe can trigger people's hearing in a different way, and we all have something to share that we can learn from. And Madeline, I want to thank you so much for sharing all these opportunities to engage with Palestinian designers and artists. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything you want to say, Madeline? You've been very generous in the chat, so just checking in. Guess not. And
She says that her video and her mic isn't working.
okay,
So,
cool.
yeah.
But thank you, Madeline, for sharing. I just wanted to give you a chance. Also, Joe, you could share your mindfulness in the chat, or you can send it to Marie to send as a follow-up from the call, which maybe you sending it to Marie, and so everybody can just have it in the follow-up email.
So how do I send it to Marie?
You can send it to Marie at codepink.org, and I will.
Marie at codepink.org. I should be able to do that.
Okay, cool. And she'll send it to everybody in the follow-up. Thank you so much. And she put it in the chat. So is there anybody else here who wants to share even their struggle with trying to decolonize the holidays? What's in your way? Is there anything that you find hard? Like family won't cooperate. I don't know how to do it differently. Like, it feels like work. Is there anything we can help you with in decolonizing? Any comments, questions, concerns from anybody else here?
One of my struggles is feeling like people who are more enmeshed in sort of war economy thinking and consumerism, that I am disappointing them by doing things in an alternative way. And that's a me problem, right? So like if they're disappointed, that's for them. But my attachment to wanting everybody to be satisfied and happy with me and pleased with my gift giving prowess, all of that is a kind of an addiction. It's a pivot I need to make about being less attached to that. And I'm wondering if other people here can relate to that.
Any nods or hearts? Yeah, there we go. We got some thumbs up. Yeah. So, that's also part of the war economy, the creating expectations, and they become cultural and normalized. I mean, let's talk about normalization a little bit. One of the things that we're watching right now is the normalization of violence. And I was just watching the Julian Assange film that Eugene Jarecki made, that won Cannes Film Festival, and no one will distribute it. So here's the truth, a movie about the truth, and no one will distribute it. But what was interesting for me in watching it was like remembering when the collateral damage video came out that Chelsea Manning had given to WikiLeaks. And what, wasn't a shock to Medea or myself or any of us that had been in Iraq. We'd seen worse, but that it was a shock to the world. We've been trying to tell the world, but here was the United States government, the United States Army basically murdering people and murdering journalists without a care in the world and actually kind of enjoying it. And it was a shock to the world, a really big shock. And here we are 20 years later, and we're watching way worse. We're watching extrajudicial killings in the Caribbean of poor fishermen that aren't even headed to the United States or headed in another direction. And it's just, a normalization. There's been so much violence. The fact that we destroyed an entire country, Libya, and nobody even talks about it, or so this normalization part is part of the muscles that we all need to work on. And it's really that space of, this doesn't feel right. This isn't the courage that we all have to have if we're going to break the war economy stranglehold, is to be naming things. And we've done an amazing job of that during this movement for the last couple of years on Palestine, of like not being quiet, not being silent, raising up all the violence. And it has changed how people think. So if we think about like how we've stood, not gotten in the way, had people like Ms. Rachel just day after day after day say, what about the children? What about the children? What about the children? Until she's moved the Democratic Party to 92% of the people saying, what Israel is doing is a genocide, from the opposite 2 years ago. But the normalization that power can just get away with murder, and nothing be in the way, makes us understand, I think, why we need to be creating this peace economy. Because whatever we do that connects to the war economy empowers it to do what it's doing. And it's really hard to understand that, because it's hard. We live inside of it, and it's the structure we live in, but everything we do in agreement to it is in agreement to it. So, just a reminder as we hit these holidays, that it is an opportunity to pivot, because it's a space of creation, and it's a space of light. So I just want to remind us that this is the time where we're entering the darkest. It's pretty freaking dark. This weekend was dark on steroids. Just watching the murders. I mean, my friend's son murdered him with a knife, and his wife. I mean, just the horror of when we're in this much pain and discomfort. So it's taking the opportunity in this time of darkness to be the light for others, because remember, it's like the candle lights the other candle. So remembering to be able to feel is a light, does create the light, being able to be in relationship to what's horrific, but knowing you have a community to hold you. And even if it's just this virtual community, that we can hold each other through this devastation, and that you can take these ideas in any way possible into your community, even if it's just inviting a potluck together to make. Find the simple thing that you can do, and reminding everybody they are simple. They don't take a lot, but they give a lot back. So, and don't do it for what it gives back. Do it for what the nourishment of giving is, because the giving back is always a surprise. You never know what it's going to look like, and that surprise is always very, very delightful. Yeah, the only recognizable feature of hope is action, is engagement. So I'm going to let Marie and Grace take us out into what's coming next. What do we have on Friday, and what have we shared, and the radio show, and other things you can have from this week. And that the book and the website is there to be a tool for you to use. I hope you will use it. I hope you use these holidays to nourish your heart, nourish the hearts of those around you. And next year when we come together, we're going to set some plans for the new year. Thank you for all you do for peace. Deep gratitude that you have hearts that feel and care and want to be laying paths for a future. I have just so much love and gratitude for you. So may these holidays enrich you and those around you. Thank you.
I wanted to take a moment just to ground us in something, and like leave this call with something that's really beautiful. And one of my favorite poets, Wendell Berry, wrote a poem you probably have heard called A Piece of Wild Things. And I felt like it needed to be called into this space. So the poem is short, and I'm just going to read it very quickly. It says, when the despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in the beauty, in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light, and for a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So I just thought that needed to be shared there, that maybe we might spend some time in nature, even though here it's really cold. It's like 15 degrees outside, but it's hard to be out in nature. But
And I think it's really cool that we started this webinar with Wendell Berry's The Work, and we're ending it with The Piece of Wild Things.
yeah,
So, and that these were written, 30, 40 years ago. And to remember that we're in the cycle of life. And that, when I mentioned these cultures from 1,000 years ago, that this is life and we are living life. And the more we can stay in the cycle of what creates conditions for life, the more we will be nourished and fed ourselves and those around us. So thanks, Marie. That was really a beautiful offering. And so just to remind everybody, I'll let Grace do that and Marie and what the next things are.
Thank you both so much. Yeah, I put in the chat. We have one more action on Friday for the local peace economy. It will be the final action also for our campaign action week. So if you can't get enough of local peace economy or just learning from Jody and Marie, we have one more chance to do that on Friday. I put that link. You can also then get all the resources that we've shared throughout all of the local peace economy action week events and any of our campaign action week events. We had one on Palestine, China, Latin America, our Cut the Pentagon campaign. So you can find all of our past webinars, actions, resources. Once you sign up with that link, you will have access to all of those resources. I also put just the direct link to last week's webinar. If you want a amazing one-on-one on local peace economy from Jody and Marie and some folks from our campaign, as well as the radio show that's from last week that features Jody talking about the local peace economy, as well as our Latin America campaigner Michelle talking about current events in Venezuela and what we can do to support the people of Venezuela. But that's all from me. Thank you guys both so much for presenting, and thank you to everyone who has joined not only tonight, but all of our campaign action weeks. This was a labor of love from not only Code Pink, but a lot of our coalition members and folks who keep these kind of actions and campaign work and movements for liberation alive. So thank you all so much for joining, tuning in, being here virtually, doing your own events throughout your own communities, and supporting the transnational actions that we talk about and that we support on a weekly, daily basis. So thank you all so much. Like I said, too, we have a survey that you can fill out in the follow-up that you'll get on Thursday, as well as a bigger follow-up next week, telling us what you liked about these campaign action weeks, what you want to see from our virtual organizing and education. And we'd love to hear your answers. So thank you all so much. Have a beautiful night. Stay warm if you're like me here up in Chicago. But yeah, thank you all so much.
yeah,
Have a
stay warm, everyone. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Grace. Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye.
you. See you next